I thought it was next week. Yeah.
Oh, I got a few back here though. Oh, that's good.
Hey, John.
Yeah. We tried to. Are you doing?
Hanging in there? Another day?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's good. Just, no, just. It's gonna be a busy next couple months.
For here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, we'll be gone most of May for Connor's graduation and then off to Portugal for 2 weeks. And then June, I got a trip to DC and a trip to Skamania Lodge for work
What you doing in DC?
and a National Association of Home Builders meetings. Well, I've been meeting with our federal delegation while we're back there.
How long you staying?
Just be a quick 3 days.
Oh. I used to like going to DC.
I've only been there once and it's been 37 years.
Oh, wow.
Wait, is that right? 87, is my math correct? Yeah, yeah, so I'm pushing 40 years for high school. This is my 40th high school. No, it was in college for a fraternity conference. Okay, Adrian and Martin, are we ready to go?
We're ready, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock and I will call the March 26, 2024 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would Councilmember Steckler please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vigneault,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
and Councilmember Paddock.
Present.
Okay, it brings us to audience communication, the first of two opportunities tonight to address the council on anything on or not on the agenda. Would anyone like to address the council? If you could step to the microphone and state your name, your city of residence, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
I will try to do so. I have some handouts if you're interested in following along.
Sure.
So I'll try to use.
Just hand them down to the end and we'll pass them down.
Mike Nichols. I've lived in Mill Creek since 1997. I live up in Parkside. And before I came here, I read all your bios and found them very interesting and a talented group of people. So I thought I'd start with just a moment about me so you knew who's talking to you. I moved out here in 1984, lived in Snohomish County the entire time. Hired in with Boeing with an undergraduate degree out of Montana State. Spent 35 great years there. Earned a master's of science degree, excuse me, from Stanford, Boeing sent me in 1994. And retired 3 years ago, interestingly enough, from your organization, BGS. I was an executive sales director when I retired. Great place to work. I've lived in Parkside since 1997. And when I reviewed your bios, we had shared several interesting things in common. Not the least of which was 4 of you specifically mentioned safety as a priority, a key value. We share that key value. I'm sure the 3 that didn't mention it still obviously share that value. We're here to talk about a proposal to increase security in my neighborhood, probably applicable to many others throughout Mill Creek. And as we all know, recognize crime is going up, no stats to prove that, but our neighborhood security and peace of mind is wrapped up right now with all the things going on in Parkside. And we live next door to Heron Park, which kind of exacerbates the situation. We've had car break-ins, car plows, package theft, everybody has, same crimes probably prevalent throughout Mill Creek. And the one thing all these crimes have in common, furthermore, I'll just say this, in Parkside, or I mean Heron Park, the rules are being violated by late night partiers, disturbing the peace, early morning pickleballers, starting at 6, we address that. And homeless folks parking in the parking lot, spending the night there. All of which are problematic and have disturbed the community, so we're very nervous. The one thing all these crimes have in common, what do you think it is? The majority of them, they don't walk into our neighborhood, they drive into our neighborhood. So our proposal, my proposal, shared by many in the community, is to work with the city to find a way to allow security gates to be installed at the entrance of our community and maybe others that are closed during the witching hours, but remain open all day long, therefore not to inhibit traffic, delivery, cities. We don't want to vacate the right of way. Currently today, Mill Creek Ordinance insists or demand that if you want to block a public road, you have to exercise the street right of way vacation process, which is onerous, and it's untenable, it's a non-starter. We don't want to buy the streets, we don't want to maintain the streets, and we don't want to close the streets off permanently 24/7. What we'd like to do is harden Heron Park security, harden Parkside security, and perhaps others throughout the community, with a totally funded, self-funded security gate, no cost to the city, stays open all day long, closes during, like I say, the witching hours. Heron Park closes at 10, close the gates at 10, open it up when Heron Park opens up 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're trapped behind the gate at night, it opens automatically. Anybody inside the neighborhood can get out without any vehicle, but the gates are closed in the evening. Nobody has any business cruising our neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning, except the residents that live in that neighborhood or their guests. It's a no outlet community, several of which exist in Mill Creek. So, in short, that is the proposal. The benefits are several, not the least of which is a secure environment, reduction of crime, peace of mind restored to our citizens and my neighbors in Mill Creek. And additionally, there'd be revenue potential. It's well known or documented that gating off or securing a neighborhood like that will drive home prices in the right direction, increasing property tax revenues, as well as permitting fees. I mean, charge a handsome permitting fee, 10K, whatever it might be. The cost spread among my neighborhood, 79 homeowners, to put in a high quality, technically sophisticated gate that allows first responders in 24/7, especially night when it's closed. It's open during the day. First responders in using strobe light technology, similar to what the police use today to control traffic lights. They can get in anytime they need to during the night. Guests need to get in after hours. Ring up the homeowner you're coming to visit, and they'll buzz you in. So, notwithstanding the fact that it would just drive a level of prestige and exclusivity, making Mill Creek even more attractive for future residents that want to move here. Got some feedback earlier, said, well, if you're doing Parkside, everybody's gonna want to do it. I say to that, terrific. Imagine if you're driving to the neighborhood at 12 o'clock at night, down Trillion, Mill Creek Boulevard, Village Green, and you had all these spanky gates closed, much like the fountains. It just brings us this sense of exclusivity and security that we deserve, and it comes to no cost. It's a win-win, in my opinion. It comes to no cost to the city, fully funded by the community, totally discretionary. We're gonna have to pass a 2/3 majority in Parkside, likely we have our own homeowners. There's precedent set to gate off parks today in Mill Creek. So I would like, and I'm not, at no time will my problem become yours. I'm not gonna throw this on your desk. I'm here to ask for your help and some guidance on how we might work together to mitigate the need to exercise this right of way of vacation process, which you gotta hire lawyers. There's one example in Mill Creek that your planner sent me. It was for a patch of ground off of 135th or off of 35th and Seattle Hill behind the coffee shop. It's about the size of this room, it looks like on the map. 160-page document the lawyers wrote to vacate that. It's not even a road. We don't want to vacate the roads, and we don't want responsibility for maintenance and paving and whatnot. So in short, that is the proposal, and I request your help in understanding how we might move forward to allow, I think, what is a win-win situation for everybody in the community and improve security by allowing security gates, automated security gates in our neighborhoods in Mill Creek. Sorry if that wasn't as smooth as I was hoping it was going. But are there any questions?
Oh, this isn't an interactive opportunity. It's a time for you, your turn to talk to us. So did you leave a copy for staff?
I have a copy. Well, I left plenty, I think I did.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we get one to
Yes.
staff and,
Okay.
yeah, thank you for the comments.
Thank you for your attention.
Anyone else like to address council in chambers? See no one else in chambers, anyone?
One more in the
Where, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see hand go up. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Nicola Roscoe, and it's just an announcement that should go through Monday. I am going to be taking over with my partner Anna Kane, the Mill Creek View newspaper. So I just want to let you all know that I am looking to move to Mill Creek, be highly involved in your community, and any suggestions that anybody has in here or online, please send to millcreekviewus.com. That's millcreekviewus.com. Not .com, @gmail.com, excuse me. I haven't taken it over yet, so we will have info at millcreekview.us, and I'm doing a new website. So it'll be fun, and I really look forward to getting all the information from the city council, news, views, community things, and making it the most beautiful paper you've ever seen in your life. Thank you.
Great, welcome. Anyone else in chambers? Okay, now online. Anyone online like to address the council? I'm not seeing any residents or members of the public. Okay, there'll be another opportunity towards the end of the meeting. Brings us to our new business. City engineer or item 8A, Silvercrest Park.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I am here to let you know that we have opened the bids for Silvercrest Park. So, just going over what I'm gonna quickly go over my agenda for the evening, just a quick overview of the project. We had our contract opening on March 7th and the outcome of the bid. Then we will go through the project funding and expense commitment status, questions, and the motions. So, Silvercrest Park is located in Silvercrest neighborhood. It is a small neighborhood park, just a little bit bigger than a standard home lot. The current park needs some work. Some of the fences are falling down. Some of the curbs are broken. The basketball court as well needs work. The paths have largely disappeared. So we are proposing to revitalize the park, provide new parking, provide new curbs around the play structures, redo the basketball court. It will not look like it does in this image. It will be blacktop and there will not be a pickleball court in it. Provide new parking, provide new paths, and re-landscape the park as well. New bench seating and also have it be ADA accessible. So we opened the bids or advertised first on February 15th, then we opened them on March 7th. These are the bids that we got. We received 7 bidders for this project, which is an excellent turnout. KA General Construction Contracting LLC had the lowest base bid and If we include alternative two, they had the overall lowest bid. Just so you know, the base bid was the general park. Alternative one was providing sport court surfacing for the basketball court. And alternative two was replacing the fence as well. We decided to spin those both out to help save costs as part of the rebid process. The sport court turned out to be approximately $90,000 based on all of the bids, which would be a huge increase to the cost of this project. And we did not think that it would be much of a benefit to the community to include it. So we decided to exclude alternative one. Alternative two, we actually pursued the broken fence as a maintenance project as well, but we found difficulty in getting a contractor on board to do that, just so we could get it done quicker due to liability and warranty requirements that the city has. This is a larger project, so those are more diluted as part of the overall project. So these bidders were able to provide responsive bids for the fence. And so we decided to go and keep the fence repair as part of this project. So as I mentioned, KA General Construction Contractors LLC is the responsible bidder providing the lowest responsive bid. Our current total funding for the project is $350,000 with the split of the funds as $161,800 from REIT. We have a $100,000 parks grant from Snohomish County and a state capital appropriation of $88,200. Overall, the expenses, we have the fully completed design contract, including construction support of $76,000 from our BDA. We have the general contract as well as the alternative in here. And then staff would like to include a construction contingency on this as well. This will allow us, if there are problems, if there are change orders, if there's anything coming up, we have a small amount of contingency that is controlled by the city manager that we can then tap and make these fixes to keep the project moving and keep construction moving instead of having to come back to the council for a $200 stick of pipe or something like that. And then also this includes the construction support and inspection, which $52,000. If we do not use all of that, it will be returned to the total. So based on this, we have a deficit of about $125,000 for the project in order to complete it. We sat down and worked with finance director to see what we can do. And what we found, or I'm sorry, the reason for the differences between this budget and what was expended is the original CIP budget was formulated back in 2020, before COVID, before all the construction increases, before all those kind of items. So it had been continued forward into the current budget with those same numbers that had not been adjusted for current construction costs. Additionally, that does not include, the CIP budget didn't incorporate contingency or inspection and construction support in the overall budget as well. We spoke with the finance director, and REIT funds do have sufficient capacity to provide the additional $125,000 without having an impact on the remaining budget. So we would like to amend the Parks and Open Space Capital Improvement Fund 317 from $2,067,600 to $2,129,600. And then also we will amend the CIP to increase the budget for this project from $350,000 to $475,000. Are there any questions?
Two questions.
Yes.
One, what was the engineer's estimate? And second, when we put this out to bid mid part of last year, we turned down all the bids because we thought they came in high and we hoped when we rebid it, they'd come in a little lower. Did they come in lower than what they did
Yes.
previously?
So first, the original engineer's estimate was $250,000 total. So this came in at a total of 318, including the alternative two. By cutting out the alternative one, which is the sport court, that did reduce the cost by $90,000. The lowest bid previously was, I believe, $360,000. So we are seeing about $40,000 less than the previous round of bidding.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no questions, I know everyone's been anxious. The first proposed motion that we need to address with the budget is up on the screen, if anyone was so inclined.
So Mayor, I'm happy to make motion
Go ahead.
to adopt an ordinance amending the 23-24 biennium budget to add $125,000 to the Parks and Open Space Capital Improvement Fund 317 and the 23-28 Capital Improvement Plan to increase Silvercrest Park Rehab Project 19-Parks-02 from 350,000 to 475,000.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I guess the only thing I would just reiterate is, I'm so glad we're getting this off the ground. And if there's ever an area in our city that needs some rehab, it's Silvercrest Park. So thank you, crew. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Take us to motion number 2, please. Proposed motion number 2.
Can I do that one?
You may.
Adopt a resolution accepting KA General Construction, Inc. as the responsible bidder, providing the lower responsive bid for the construction of the Silvercrest Park Rehabilitation Project, and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract not to exceed $314,806.64 and use the remaining construction contingency funds in 19 Parks 02 if and as appropriate.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Same as what Councilmember Cavallari, I was on the Parks and Recreation Board when this first came, and I remember Councilmember Cavallari coming to speak to us about it and about the funds. And so I'm really glad, and I really appreciate the staff's taking a step back and looking at everything. I really appreciate that. I think we all do. But it's very clear that staff is taking the time to, and having the opportunity to make sure that we're starting this right, because there were so many bumps along the road and we don't want additional speed bumps that we can get to them. So thank you for your hard work, and thank you for all staff for your time on this.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I am so happy that we are finally at this point, that I feel like this has been such a process, and COVID hit in the middle, and it's a park that is so needed to be rehabilitated for the people who live over that area. And I know it gets lots of use, and they are going to be so happy to have the improvements. And so I am very happy that we are finally at this point. And so I just want to say good job to everyone for getting us here. I know it's been a process, and thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the final project.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you, council, and thank you, project engineer Soltani.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to talk about Mill Creek Library project, and I want to propose the authorization to sign the state grant agreement. So first, I want to talk about a little bit background, what this project is all about, and what kind of responsibilities city and Snow Isle has, and talk about the grant that we have here, and then that's about it. So about the background of this project, so library building actually, the owners is city of Mill Creek, and we are responsible for repairment and services. So when they first installed the flooring, there was some problems with the subfloors, and it was spongy since then. So that needs repairment from the beginning. And while that repairment is going to happen, they need to remove all the shelves, all the books, everything. So they're thinking about all the other repairment that needs to be happen there. One of them is HVAC system that needs to be upgraded. Also, there are some other renovations that need to happen, like restroom. So you can see the list here: restroom upgrades, accessibility improvement, interior update to the interior space. And then between City of Mill Creek and the library, there have been this agreement that which part city will be responsible, which part a library will be responsible for. And then, so that when I'm talking about responsibility, it's about the financial responsibility. So all of it in the library will do the project management, everything. We're just talking about the finance. So city applied for the state capital appropriation in 2021, 2023. And grant was awarded on May 2022 for about 200,000 deducted from all the taxes was deducted. So we have 194,000. And city has completed staff readiness forms. And yeah, I'm here to propose the motion for giving us the grant to sign this agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Soltani. Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I was going
Oh,
to motion.
I
Can I make,
think you have a motion, Councilmember Steckler, or a question?
Is my light on?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Cavalieri.
Cavalieri, yeah.
Sorry.
We look a lot alike.
Thanks. So, I mean, you're looking for us to just accept the grant, but so I'm looking at the specifics of this project. The last, I thought our understanding is that the city was responsible for the floor and the roof, and anything in between was the library or snow aisles responsibility. So what are we covering with those costs?
I think I need to get back to.
Yeah, so it's kind of complicated. So we're in charge of the shell and they're in charge of the inside. And the shell, as you said, would be roof. In this case, we don't need to replace the roof, but it's the HVAC system is a system that goes with the building. So we thought we had the responsibility to upgrade that at this opportunity. 2 of the 4 units have failed over the years, 2 more are on their last legs. And so we felt like that was part of it. It's been the capital project for a while. And this floor had been in the project. So we went and got the money. The 200,000 was more than enough for that, but we kind of threw the 200,000 in. They're throwing about 800,000 in. It's about $1 million project. So that was, you may remember several months ago, you amended the annexation agreement to allow the use of the reserve funds, and both parties are putting money into it. So it's been a long haul. Maryam has carried through on doing the final grant readiness work that's taken longer than we wanted to, but we're still going to get this done in time for the library building to be constructed this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Now, would you like to make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
thank you, Mayor. Move to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the State of Washington Department of Commerce to accept the state grant funds for Mill Creek Library Project.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I am so excited that we are able to move forward and accept this grant. This has been a long process, and as many may know that you've been to us multiple times about this project and for approval. And this started with a collaboration with Representative Berg and discussing what the library needed and coming up with a way to find money that would help with that project. And the agreement for Snow Isle to actually work on this and do all the project management was a really great agreement. So this is really needed for our community. Our library is the most used, most popular library in the Snow Isle system. So many people are coming through here every single week for their books. It is just phenomenal. And for the floor to be soggy and to not have air conditioning properly in the summer when you go in has just been so frustrating on my part. So I am really happy that the state was willing to give us this grant and that we were able to work with them to get these funds to make our library better because it enhances the entire community. And I'm just really excited. This is really my heart, and I'm so happy that we're able to move forward on this now. So thank you for all the work that you've done to bring us here. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Duque.
Everything Mayor Pro Tem said, ditto. But as someone who uses the library on a weekly basis, and even just last week on a Thursday, I needed to do some printing and it was completely full and I had to wait for a computer, and our library, it's absolutely busy. I'm in the know about that this is coming. And I'm aware that this is something that needs to happen. And I'm concerned as always, and I know that the library system has told us that, you know, there'll be communications and making sure that we share what's going on, and there'll be, you know, I'm sure they'll think of some great way to still be able to hand out books like during COVID or what happened at other libraries when there's been problems. But I just wanted to make sure I state here that it's really important us as a city as well to be sharing if there's any closures or changes or what that looks like, that we're also actively communicating it to our residents, and not just City of Mill Creek residents, but also those who consider themselves part of Mill Creek or whatever variation of Mill Creek that's included in our borders, because our library is very heavily used. And thank you again for all this amazing work, but just wanted to say that for the publication or the promoting of whatever that looks like, that we really are actively as a city and not just relying on the library to do it, because we have access to our community in that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Horn. Yeah.
All right, good evening, council. I have two items, hopefully quick items for you this evening. The first is a proposed amendment to the business park zone, which would specifically amend the secondary uses. So currently in the business park zone, here are the secondary uses that are allowed. Security guard quarters, retail sales of goods manufactured or assembled at the site of sales, and on-site waste treatment storage facilities. Our proposal would be to add one more allowed use, like so, which would allow commercial kennels, pet stores, and pet grooming facilities. Now, why is this? We staff received some interest a while back about placing some of these uses in the BP zone, and we had to say, sorry, it's not allowed. But when I thought about it and thought, well, why isn't it allowed? Would there be any negative externalities to having in this zone? And we couldn't think of any negatives to allowing these uses in the business park zone. We also thought if we were going to allow these uses anywhere in the city, where would a good place be? Answer was the BP zone, because you know, commercial kennels, pet stores, they have some negative externalities. They can be noisy, but the BP zone has no residential to bother. It's an industrial office type uses, so we thought it'd be a good synergy. Also, we decided to be best as a secondary use rather than a principal use. What's the difference? The principal use can be, it's like the main use for a site. So you know, build a home, that's a residential use. A secondary use needs a principal use to go along with it. So you couldn't just open up a pet store in the BP zone. It would have to be in an existing building using less than half of the footprint. So it couldn't be, you couldn't, basically it would enable people to use existing buildings in the zone that are currently empty. There are some retail vacancies. So we thought it'd be good to allow commercial development in the area. It wouldn't bother anyone. There's no residential nearby. And we just allow us to better use that zone. For reference, the BP zone is in the southern end of the city, west of 527. Right here.
Thank you. I'm like, I can't visualize it.
I was trying to figure that out.
So the planning commission has already met and held a public hearing. We received one comment from a business owner in the area who was in favor, and the planning commission recommended that city council approve the amendment. So if city council agrees, I have a proposed motion to adopt an ordinance. Any questions?
Thank you, Justin. Any questions? Councilmember Steckler and then Councilmember Cavalier.
Quick question, are there, since this is a secondary setup, have we looked at any nearby pet stores that would be impacted by this location?
Well, there's, there is a new pet store up in the farm that's pretty far away. There's one pet store in town center that I'm aware of, and they did not So we contacted them, they didn't mind,
Yeah. I was thinking more of the one in the farm.
Mhm.
And they set up with the understanding that they did their own analysis of any other pet stores near them in that area, and now to have one open in the industrial park. I don't know if it's something we should consider or look into or talk to them or just see if they have any concern about, like you did with town center. I don't think town center is a problem at all, but I was thinking of the farm.
Mhm.
And we just have a whole bunch of new retailers in there and
Mhm.
want to be as respectful as we can. Is that a possibility that we could?
We could reach out to them. I'm not sure what the service level is for how will there be an impact. It's on the opposite end of the city, but we can certainly look into it.
Okay.
Councilmember Cavallari?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like a little bit more information, maybe dig a little deeper. Is there a plan in place? Is there a proposal on the table? Is that why we're having this conversation? Or it's a long time coming and it's just something we forgot to check a box a long time ago and here we are?
Yeah, we did receive interest from a store that wanted to relocate to that area. They didn't ask us to make this change, but when they asked us, could we do this? We said no, but then we said, well, should we be saying no? Is this a use that would actually help? We have interest, want to allow people to use these vacant spaces. So there is interest in using this. I don't want to name the name of the business because they have a current lease and they don't want to. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I guess a business like this is very specific, so perhaps the other businesses or community members around there, I would prefer to see some notification ahead of time if, just to be on the safe side, if these type of uses are okay, or if you know that going in. Maybe just a little more due diligence rather than just adding an amendment to an ordinance here for a business that has a proposal on the table, my opinion. Thanks.
Councilmember Duque?
Did you want to say something
I
first,
was going to
Maria?
clarify that I think part of the process by going through the planning commission was there a public note? There was a public notice, there was a public hearing, so people had an opportunity to speak up. One person spoke up and was in favor of it. So this is a vacant space down on 9th. The owner of the building probably would like to lease it up. And we just looked at this and said, our BP zoning is from a long time ago. We've had some other issues, not issues, but some other opportunities that times have changed. And so this looked like it was a good opportunity.
Thank you.
Now I go. Okay, so I was curious, I had a few questions. I was curious, why not allow it to be the primary aspect in terms of a kennel? And I asked that because I know it's one of the top requests I always see on the Mill Creek community, or there's always a need for people looking for boarding locations and then even grooming, in reference to not inside Mill Creek, but just right outside over on 180th. We have there is a new dog grooming location that opened, and there was one across the street, Christie's. There's a few in that area. They're just not in Mill Creek, but that kennel aspect, I feel like, or dog boarding, that aspect, I'm just curious why it couldn't be a primary, or why you didn't look at it towards that.
Yeah, great question. I debated whether it should be primary or secondary. I settled on secondary because the way the PP zone is written, its primary use is business and industry. Within the secondary is kind of things that can support that but aren't directly related. So it's a good question. We thought it'd be better as secondary just because it's not the primary use of that zone. It's sort of a secondary, an additional use that can be used there.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I would be in support of it if it ever came to be that was a need. I'm curious then, where is it allowed in our zoning for it to be primary?
In the community business zone.
Community business, that's the zoning I need to look at. Okay, I was looking at the map over the weekend and I was trying to figure out that one. And then does that mean, and then can you tell me the zoning? I could look at the map, and sorry about that, but I thought I had heard a few years ago that there was the potential for a kennel or boarding facility on Bothell Everett Highway, that they had requested it. Is that community, that's that type of zoning?
Yeah, that's community business.
Community business, and that's the one near that Les Schwab whatnot area. And I'm, just because we're here, any update on what's going on with that property? Cause it's still just empty.
It's still empty. I know the property owner is trying to sell.
Okay.
I don't know.
And that could be all you could give me. I'm just curious if there was anything up to that. And then, so you told me where it's currently allowed and then the other part. Thank you very much. I appreciate that information.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that you're bringing this to us as a secondary use. And I think for me, when I'm trying to visualize what this looks like, we actually go all the way to Kirkland for the whole cat and caboodle because that's where they only have cats. And so that's where we take Maribel. And so they are in a like a shopping center, and then they have their section for cat boarding, and they do groom the cats, and then they do have like a place to pet the cats, and then they have just a small store with just a few things. So I guess that's kind of what I'm visualizing in my head. So I do think that as a secondary use like that, that can fit within the framework of a business center like that just fine. So I'm comfortable with that use. So thank you.
Yeah, that's what we were envisioning, having a center where there's multiple businesses and one of those could be one of these uses.
Yeah, and it doesn't really affect anything else. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think there's a good reason why we don't want it to be a primary use. I've been looking for a place to put my dogs while we're in Portugal in May. And a couple of the facilities we're looking at, these places are large.
Yeah.
And so if we allow it as a primary use, in theory, someone could assemble a bunch of properties and put a very large kennel facility in. And I'm not sure that's what we have in mind of allowing. So I support this being a secondary use. Is there any other questions?
And I know you answered this, Mayor, privately, but so this is that little space or the area behind QFC? I'm just trying to.
Yes, that's right.
South on 9th, right?
I'd like to move to make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Mill Creek Municipal Code, section 17.20.020, relating to business and industrial park zone secondary uses and setting an effective date.
Second.
Do we need to set the effective date?
That was the name of the.
Okay.
ordinance.
The ordinance will take care of that. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Next.
Right, so I have one more item, and it's the SAFEbuilt contract renewal. So currently, the city uses SAFEbuilt as our contractor for our building official, plan review, and building inspection services. We don't have anyone on staff who does that. We don't have a building official on staff or inspector. It's all contracted out. We've been using SAFEbuilt since 2018, and they've been our primary or the only provider of those services since 2019. Our current contract expired at the end of last year. And so we need to renew this contract, continue providing services. Contract is essentially, it's nearly unchanged from the previous one, the same maximum spend of $250,000. The only thing that's changed is that the fee schedule has been updated according to CPI as indicated in the last, or stipulated in the last contract.
Questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I had one question.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilmember Paddock, and then Councilmember Addison.
What are the metrics that are used to evaluate kind of the efficacy of their services? Because we hear a lot, I hear a lot from homeowners, and this was a little bit earlier when, there was a lot more billing. Time it takes to go through the process, time it takes to get responses, time it takes to find the right individuals. Do we measure any of that time of response?
We haven't been tracking it very closely, but we have in the contract, it's stipulated they have 10 days to do review for a regular business, for a small residential business. And I think I could be wrong, but I believe it's 14 days for a large commercial review. So our review times are actually quite low, and SAFEbuilt has been very responsive in getting things done. Once or twice something's fallen through the cracks, like anything happens, but they're as soon as they just found out, they they work to make it done, get it done as soon as possible.
So what I'm hearing is, it sounds like anecdotally,
Mhm.
they're pretty much hitting the mark, but there's not necessarily something that says, we saw a 14-day on this one, a 10-day on this, and a 5 on, it's really kind of an anecdotal.
Yeah, we have that data, it's just not collected in one like Excel sheet. I mean, but
Yeah.
like we track our permit times from review start to end.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Ellison?
Yeah, is the length of this contract a year, 2 years? What's the
2 years.
duration? Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with SAFEbuilt to provide building official, plan review, and building inspection services.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And now we apparently have large animals amending our code.
That's right. Are you referring to me as the large animal?
No, I'm referring to the agenda item, large
I
animals.
I could pass it up, Mayor, I apologize. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council. Actually, yes, well, no small animal state, just animals at large, let's say that. Okay, so currently chapter 6.14 of the Mill Creek Municipal Code covers animal control regulations. And we're coming to you tonight with a recommendation or a proposal to change a specific code in there. It's section 6.14.020. This states that it is unlawful for any person to permit an animal from learning at large. The use of just saying an animal is pretty vague, and that's what we're trying to kind of limit here. The reason we're trying to limit that is most cities, the language is somewhat outdated. Most cities in our area have changed to allow an exemption for domestic licensed cats. The reason for that is typically most cats are not aggressive towards people. Cats can be very difficult to address for a code enforcement officer or animal control officer. The way that we would typically restrain a cat would be to use a trap. Traps are baited. We tend to catch other things rather than cats, such as raccoons, coyotes, you name it, any wild animal that you thought might be interested in the same bait that a cat would be. And those traps can cause undue stress on these animals. Not just wildlife, but actually the cats that we might be intending to trap. 5 out of the 7 surrounding jurisdictions in this area have exempted domestic licensed cats from their animals at large code. And so we're asking that we consider the same and proposing a change to the ordinance, which would allow for an exemption of domestic licensed cats. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? Councilmember Duque.
Please.
Thank you very much for being here. I had a couple questions, but then I also received a text from someone who also had a question after reviewing our agenda, so I wanted to bring theirs up first. Yeah, surprise. Sorry. Have we heard from experts, or so while you were researching the others that have changed them, when I researched this, when I was looking it over, I found an article, I think maybe back from 2006 from the Everett Herald, that said how every city was different, right? Something along those lines. And it went through that Mukilteo allowed for wandering and others allowed for wandering of cats, but you could trap it if it was a nuisance. And it was all these, differing opinions. And so I guess as people have made the changeover to allow for them to be able to roam or wander in that kind of language that I was talking about. Did you see anything about people asking from experts about the risks to wildlife in the area for cats to run large, or about spreading diseases?
We did not look into spreading diseases. We were just looking in the best interests of the animals here in Mill Creek.
Perfect, thank you. Because I'm just curious, I didn't see anything either. I wanted to be clear. I looked to see if anyone was making any of these changes and if their local newspaper had reported on it and mentioned, and I didn't see anything, but I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, no,
as the
we just
professional.
went with the city codes that have been changed for the local jurisdictions surrounding us. And like I said, 5 out of the 7 have exempted these cats.
I appreciate that. And then the other one that I had is actually more about HOAs. I'm curious to know, because so many as someone who is part of an HOA and has heard many complaints about animals with their neighbors and all that kind of fun stuff that we deal with. I believe certain HOAs have, restrictions on allowing pets to wander. And so by changing this, we're then superseding then what their rules are, we're not. So that's what I wanted to clarify. So the HOAs, if they have a tighter thing, they don't,
HOA covenants are a completely separate entity and
Perfect.
therefore they're handled differently.
So if an HOA has a covenant or a rule restriction about cats going into neighbors' yards, whatever that is, that would supersede anything that the city would do, or not supersede, it's just different.
Correct.
So if there's any issues, they're not gonna call police, for example. The HOA would then have to deal with it themselves instead of contacting you, because that's what we're saying.
Correct.
And could they then, after seeing this change, decide they want to implement it? Would they still be able to implement it if an HOA doesn't currently have this listed?
I defer to the city attorney, but I believe that an HOA covenants would be a completely separate entity in the municipal code.
That is correct. The HOA would have to amend its bylaws in accordance with the terms of amending whatever the procedures they have, but we don't enforce the HOA's bylaws.
Fantastic. And I'm just bringing this up because we have so many HOAs in our city. And I think that's one of the opportunities where there might be some conflict. So if this does pass tonight, I would hope that maybe part of our communication could be just sharing with HOAs, just because I think there'll be that. I know we generally will say, well, if it's a pet issue, you should contact the police. And so now we'll have to tell our neighbors something different. And so I think there's an opportunity to be transparent with the community about what the role is with police officers, in these issues. Because I just can't believe that you guys were having to trap or set traps for, you can't catch a cat. As someone who grew up with cats, you can't control them.
But I would say that there are other ordinances as well that
Yes,
would,
of course.
would be used to, there's still nuisance animals, there's still, waste laws or ordinances. So those things are handled different ways. So I wouldn't mind them calling the police department and we can answer their questions and either refer them to, either say something we can handle or refer them to someone who can help.
Fantastic. Even something as basic as on the website, because that's how I found what other cities did, having it clear about what it is and then just, asking whenever we do our local, if we have communication with HOAs, to just share with them, these are the new things that have come up. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Grant, can you clarify the HOA issue? Am I correct to assume that an HOA could have CC&Rs that are more restrictive than the city ordinance, but the city would not be required to enforce those more strict provisions, but an HOA could not be less restrictive than this in their CC&Rs in the city ordinance? Is that correct?
Well, with respect to, they can try to, that is a practical matter. The answer is yes. They can't be more restrictive, but we don't regulate. I mean, they can adopt whatever they want, but that doesn't mean that if they're inconsistent with our ordinances, we enforce our ordinances.
Right. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around how is this different and how do we know between whether or not it's a licensed cat until you get all the way out there and you trap the cat because it's a cat. So that to me just seems like a complicated, until you actually have that cat in your hand, how do you know if it's licensed? And even then, if it's not wearing its collar, then how do you even know if it's licensed or not? So it seems we're making some rule more complicated.
Yeah, actually, it is somewhat of a catch and release situation then. A lot of cats do wear collars with license, so we would notice that automatically and say that that's not a cat that we would be wanting to pick up or trap. And also we have a pretty extensive database that is very descriptive. So if we're dispatched to an area and there's a cat in the area that's walking around, we actually might be able to do a search of licensed cats within that area. And we actually might be able to find a similar looking cat, description of a cat. That's why when we have our licensing, it breaks it down to all types of different questions regarding the animal, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. this just seems like a problem waiting to happen to me, for me. I mean, is there so much cat calling going on that we're trying to just, make an allowance for it? I don't understand why we would, to the Mayor Pro Tem's comments of, is it that significant that we need to address this or change the code? I mean, what do we, all right, here's a good quick one, really quick, before you answer that. What do you do with the cat collector who just allows the cats to run wild?
Well, and that's not the case. We are having more issues with not wanting to trap the domestic cats that have licenses. We don't have a lot of calls to this regard, but I would also not want to just leave the code as it is and, start catching more cats that are possibly causing the undue stress of being in a trap for an extended period of time could change their, mental state. We don't know what we're doing to these animals by trapping them. Not only that, the risk of catching the wildlife as well is a concern to me as well, in my opinion. So this allows us to be more in line with our surrounding jurisdictions. It allows us for ease of explanation when we say, the animal is licensed, it appears to be a domestic cat, and that's not within our code.
See, I share the mayor, not the Mayor Pro Tem's, Councilmember Duquesne's comments about the HOAs as well, is that it's going to become a conflict at some point where the city's going to have to play referee. Well, hey, our HOAs don't support this, but the city code does. What are you doing? This cat's still on my property. So I just don't know if, I think this is a road we didn't need to go down, but yet here we are. That's just me, the way I kind of see it.
And there's a lot of people who have indoor, outdoor cats. Cats typically leave and come back home. They're not typically hanging around someone's yard for very long if they are in that location. So I don't know that would be a concern of ours.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, lots of cat questions. So like, for instance, we ran into one of Cora's friends this weekend in the nature preserve and her cat got out and I don't know if it's licensed or not, but it's an indoor cat and it got out by accident. So what if it's a licensed cat and then it accidentally gets out and then are we gonna help them if we find the cat? I mean, so
Well,
I
so
guess
you have-
this is just opening up 50 million questions for me about cats.
Yeah, we're never going to turn somebody away. We'll help look for the cat, and if we see the cat, we'll provide that information to the owner, especially if the owner makes us aware that the cat is not at home. But these cats know where the food is, they know where the water is, and more likely than not, they're going to come home and try to eat. So really, we're trying to just take care of removing animals that are well maintained, well taken care of, that have loving homes that we want them to go back to rather than be in a trap.
And on the HOA issue, I'm not sure there's gonna be much conflict. In my experience drafting CCNRs, most CCNRs regulate the number of domesticated animals you can keep, and they don't regulate where they wander or anything like that. It's purely the number. So I'm not sure there's gonna be a conflict with our city ordinance with or without this change. Councilmember Paddock?
I just had a scope scale question. How many, cat calls does the city actually get in a month? Just roughly.
Not many. Not many.
So we're talking a lot about something that doesn't happen often.
Yes.
Copy.
It was worth using twice.
Yet I'm still here.
Other questions? Any motions? What's the council's desire?
The motion is at the top of the agenda summary. Adrian, I thought you possibly might have a slide as well for the motion.
Yep, bringing it up.
Councilmember Allison.
Make a motion to enact an ordinance of the city of Mill Creek, Washington, amending chapter 614 of the Mill Creek Municipal Code, prohibiting certain animals from running at large and setting an effective date 5 days after the publication.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion passes 5-2. Thank you, Chief. Okay, I think that brings us to me and a proposed new initiative I'd like to discuss with council. You recall a couple meetings ago, I reported on the South County Mayor's meeting I attended where one of the topics of discussion was the automated traffic cameras that they had recently, speed cameras in particular, they'd recently installed in their cities. After that, we had our city chat a couple weeks ago, and this was a big topic of discussion as it has been elsewhere in recent years. We've heard it at other city chats as well. Speeding is an issue in our city. Since I've lived here, we've had deaths from speed on Seattle Hill Road, on 35th. We had motorcyclists die on Village Green Drive a number of years ago. I'm sure there's been some on 527. I know there was a serious crash last year. We have an issue that we need to look at. One thing that surprised me, and I can't remember if I mentioned this in my report a couple weeks ago, is the cities who have installed these cameras, they indicated that the majority of the people who are paying these fines aren't their residents. They're people that are passing through from other communities. So this is something that would potentially promote public safety in our community without putting a financial burden on our residents unless they were violating the law. So I'm not asking to make a decision tonight if we want to do this. I'm asking if there's support to have the council or have the staff put together in the coming weeks a work plan of what it would take for us to consider implementing this if we choose to do so. It is not just snap your fingers and put in traffic cameras. There's a whole list of requirements and preconditions that a city has to jump through under the state statutes. There are limitations on where they can be placed. I think for us, it would mainly be potentially in school zones and in park zones. Trying to gauge if there's council support to have the staff put together a work plan of what it would look like and what it would take for us to consider this if we wanted to do this. So that's what I'm throwing on the table. I'm interested in hearing your comments. And I don't know, I'll go ladies first. I'm not sure which one of the corner came on first. So Councilmember Duque.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Absolutely supportive of this. And I would hope that as we were thinking about our retreat and what our priorities were and what, our focus areas are and what we hear from residents. So this makes absolute sense to me. I would like that if we take this as a phased approach where there's the traffic cameras as a discussion, more than another, looking into what does it mean for our current speed, what the current speeds are in general. I don't know why I can't think of the word, the signs. What am I thinking about? Speed limits. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word, but taking a look at that, what our current speed limits are, what are other areas, because I'm thinking about the presentation we had down in Seattle, and there was about lowering the numbers of speed limits anyways, and then crosswalks and things like that. I think not just letting this be the only thing, but focusing on this now and then continuing to make it as a phased approach, that we're always thinking about how we can improve safety, especially when it comes to speeding, is very important to me. I know for me, if this is approved to, give the go ahead to look into it, I'd really be interested in knowing what our police feel, what they think, what they've seen, and data about how it would be helpful in, understanding better those restrictions. So thank you for your bringing this up.
That's what I would expect would all be part of the work plan. Councilmember Paddock.
Sorry, I thought another council member had a question. I guess so very much in favor of this. I would have one ask on the direction to the city staff would be to look at this as broadly as possible and then allow us to cut back rather than to start with a conservative perspective. After we had the city, after you and Mayor Pro Tem had the city chat and I hung around for snacks, I did go back and take a look at what the regulations were in the state. And as was noted, right, there's some concerns about, or it needs to be around parks, needs to be around schools. But if you look at the spread of the parks and the schools, we hit almost every arterial road. where I've heard folks complain about speeding. So there is an opportunity to create a ring that really hits the major spots. And there's one exception to that where we, based on mitigation performance and whatnot, we can have one location, each city can have one location. It doesn't require a park or a school. And having Washington State Department or Washington State Department of Highways and the Washington State Patrol's blessing to do that after a study is done. And we happen to have, I think, fairly strong legislative influence with the Washington State Patrol. Something like that on Seattle Hill Road where there isn't a park and there isn't a school would be perfect because that is becoming a thoroughfare. And I think we get a lot of support for that.
Well, and one of the interesting aspects to me is whether that influences our decision on, I forget what they're calling it, but the farm mitigation area that we have the opportunity, if we chose to take it over as a city park, if that abuts 35th. Does that create a park zone potentially that we could regulate 35th?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. You would think that park, how they call that as the definition, but that Penny Creek Nature Preserve, I mean, depends what the definition of a park is. It may stand as is to be a park and be able to get caught in that ordinance for having a speeding zone.
Okay, Councilmember Steckler.
Oh, good. I just want to make sure I wasn't stepping out of
We're
line
going by
here.
lights that are on, so.
Oh, okay. I also am in favor of this and just in kind of following up too, what Councilman Paddock said. Couple thoughts. There are two reasons, great reasons. Everybody knows these. There are two reasons to put these cameras in. One is a safety concern. The other one is a financial opportunity. And I think as long as we focus on the safety concerns with what we're doing with our cameras, I think that's very smart. And I'd like to make that publicly the direction that the council approaches with this. In addition, I know there's two factors here. There's limitations on where you could put a speed camera, as you've all said here, parks and schools. But I think that you also can put them other thoroughfares if you do a traffic study to determine if there is abusive, behavior that needs to be controlled. And I bring up that because I know I have received, since I've been on this bench, numerous complaints about the speeding on 527 at night and exclusively at night. When it's there's some, you hear drag racing and that kind of thing. It's not really drag racing, but just cars going down real fast and making a lot of noise. And so if we can also include with this the opportunity to do some traffic studies to areas where there is speeding, and that's a safety issue, that we can also add a camera in there. And I know you're only talking about cameras, but as long as I'm on the safety stance, the red light cameras, which have much more broad, as I understand it, and I may be wrong, and our attorney can direct me, but they don't have as many restrictions. And there are many places where, 164th is a parking lot at night, coming home from commuters, coming home at night. And there's a lot of people running through red lights they're so frustrated after taking so long to get down here. And the areas that they are running through are Mill Creek Boulevard and 527, because they've made it all the way down that big long hill and they want to get across there and not have to wait for that big turn of the lights again. So I love the idea of the speed cameras, Mayor. I'd like to focus on safety, which means I'd like to look at a couple of other areas where we have significant traffic racing speed issues that could, this could just deter them. I'm not as interested in getting the tickets as I am as people saying, oh, criminy, there's cameras here. I don't want to speed down 527 Mill Creek anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else where I don't get tagged and get a speeding ticket. And I think we should also include and expand this just slightly from a safety concern to do some red light cameras as well in the areas where there's red light abuse. I think that would be a smart thing. There's also a red light, the only free right you cannot take in Mill Creek off of
Trillium.
Yeah, that's right. Trillium onto 527. And it's from a safety concern that we do that. A lot of people take those red lights and I can hear some squealing. Only one time in my life I've ever seen anybody almost get whacked on that. But I think, being able to have cameras there as well would deter people from speeding through a red light or taking a red light, even though we say not to. So I love the idea of cameras. Really, last gasp, and I'll be quiet. I want to get everything out. Also, I like this idea. I looked at it on the agenda, and being on the finance committee, we took a look at fines and penalties, which has been a challenging area for our city. We've not been able to make the budgets on that. And it's not due to lack of effort because our police have increased their presence and gotten out there to write more tickets, but it's just this also takes a real burden off of our police force in the areas where normally we'd say, why don't we park a cop there all night long? When in fact that police officer can be out patrolling the neighborhoods and let the cameras do the work for the police officers. I wholeheartedly support that. Thanks.
And the intent of my suggestion is to look at automated traffic cameras, not specific, limited to speeding, is look at what the statute allows for them to bring back for us to consider. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Since what we're doing here is we're trying to find out if you have enough people to move forward with researching this. I am interested in moving forward and having a study session and finding out more information on this. We did have quite a few comments at the mayor chat this time, as the mayor said, and I want to make sure that we do gather the information. I want to make sure we're getting, and I know we will, but I just want to point this out, that all the legal ramifications for the different types of cameras, and also financial impacts, not only on how much does it cost for us to, because there's also the cost of what it will cost for each camera or where we're putting it, how much it will cost to maintain over time, as well as look at what income might be coming in as well. And I do want, as we start to get excited down here about all the whole city, I do want to point out that the people who came to us were specifically talking about in front of Heatherwood, or around the Heatherwood school needing something. And so I want to make sure that we keep that highlighted, and that is a school, and that is really important to maintain safety in that area. So I just want to, as everybody starts to get excited and go everywhere, I want to make sure we're staying focused on a few areas, and that we're making sure that we're being realistic of timeframes and how much to bite off at once, because if we bite off too much, we're not gonna get anything accomplished. So I am in favor of moving forward with more information and seeing what this would look like.
Councilmember Cavallari?
Thanks, Mayor. I hate traffic light cameras. I hate speed cameras. I think they're very big brother, and I think they're Pandora's box. We have our neighbor to the west of us that has more rear end collisions because of red light cameras than anywhere in the county. We've had an issue with staffing thus far for enforcement, and now that we're getting fully up to snuff with our police department, we're looking to just supplant the enforcement, or perhaps even make it in addition to with red light cams. For some council members are suggesting for revenue generation, which I absolutely would disagree with as well. Linwood has turned their city and their traffic light cameras into slot machines. Millions of dollars collected every year, and they're not preventing fatalities. And the one question I would ask, I know you're bringing this to our attention, but would traffic light cams have prevented those deaths that you brought up in the beginning? And the answer is no. These are things that happen in the course of doing business. Enforcement, law enforcement, enforcement is what stops the nonsense, giving citations, stopping the speeders, pulling them over. A red light cam, all it does is give someone a ticket that probably didn't know they were going to get one. And again, you might have consensus here to bring it forward, but I oppose it. Thanks.
Councilmember Allison?
So I am in favor of understanding what the ordinances in the state allow us to do. I think that it would be helpful to hold people accountable that speed past the schools, especially. That's a personal pet peeve of mine, that people don't slow down when the light is flashing and there's kids walking around. It's like a no-brainer. But I do have my concerns about kind of opening the Pandora's box, like Vince, Councilmember Cavallari just said. So, but I'm more than happy to have the staff go research the ordinances and let us know what the art of the possible is, I guess.
Councilmember Steckler?
And just a point of clarification.
Mike?
Just a point of clarification. I agree with Councilman Cavallari. I am not interested in pursuing these cameras from a revenue standpoint. I solely am interested in pursuing them from a safety standpoint. I only want to look at areas where it would enhance safety for us, where there is violations today, and maybe these cameras could help make our streets a little safer. Then I do support it. But I'm not interested in turning our city into a slot machine either. I agree with that. And I don't think our citizens want that from their council as well. But from a safety standpoint, I do support them.
And we're not making any decisions tonight. We're just giving direction for the staff to come back to a work plan so we can have discussions about whether and where and what to implement in the city. So, and just to be clear, even if we move forward with any of this, it's probably going to be an 18-month process before we ever see any cameras. But if we want to consider it, we've got to start that process. So Mayor Pro Tem and I will work with the city manager to bring back a work plan in the next couple agendas so we can discuss this further. Okay. City manager study session.
All right, so bringing the opioid discussion back, we've had a discussion, what happened here? Somebody else is running the PowerPoints. I'll let them. Just good. All right, thank you. And so I'm gonna forward. Nope, wrong one. There we go.
One second.
I could run it. I can run it, Adrian. Oh. It's paused. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so back in, well, here's the agenda. So I'll give you a quick timeline of the accomplishments. So back in 2023, we gave you kind of a glimpse of the opioid program, all the distributions that were, well, what came in so far. Since then, there's another distribution coming in from the pharmaceuticals. And so I'll give you a kind of a highlight of all the timeline, kind of a quick highlight of the timeline, kind of what happened in the past. And then the financial impact, you'll get an idea of kind of what we received so far, and then what we're going to get yet to receive in the future years, the next 14 years going forward. The core abatement strategies. I didn't include one other bullet item. Here's what Chief put together as what would be our internal strategy should we retain the funds as opposed to reallocate to another agency. Pros and cons of both options of reallocating and keeping the funds in-house. And then we'll get your recommendation, and then we'll provide you with what our recommendation as well. So back actually in 2022, you had the opportunity to approve the participation in the distributor settlement piece of it. We did start receiving those funds, and in the next slide, you'll see kind of what we received so far and what we're yet to receive going forward. April 4th of last year, you approved the participation agreement in the pharmaceutical settlement. November, you got the opportunity to see Snohomish County. They presented their spending plan, their phases 1 and 2, and it provides you with, they gave you an opportunity to kind of present kind of what they were planning into the future. They don't have anything set at this point, so they're still in the development phase as well. Abatement strategies, and on December 5th, we had the opportunity to provide with the abatement strategies that our choices and options for moving forward and what we could do in-house with those funds. And then finally, today we're here so that I can present to you kind of where we sit now the financial aspect of it, and then we'll hopefully get your decision on how we move forward. So I'll show you the first of financial distributions, which will give you a sense of what we're dealing with currently, and then all the distributions that we will be receiving through the next 14 years. We've already went through 3 years so far. We've received 29,753 from the distributor so far. Going forward, in that top line, you can see what we're going to be getting over the next 14 years. Everything in yellow is what is the total amount that we will be getting when we start getting the pharmaceutical projected receipts this year, which should start this year. So by the end of 2024, I highlighted in that box 94,378, which is what we will have on hand by the end of the year. That's what we're projecting. So it's like startup money for something, either us, or if we reallocate, we could send all or a portion of that to the county, for example. It just shows you over the next 14 years what those allocations would be. On average, it's about just under 25,000. So in total, it's 443,876. So it just gives you an idea of what the total amount is. Not a lot on an individual basis every year, but in total, it's close to $500,000. Give you a sense of what was listed in the settlements abatement strategies. These are just high level, 12 different areas that we can use abatement funding for. And I'm going to skip to this slide, which is what we put together to give you an idea of what we could use those funds for if we were to keep those funds in-house. Partnering with other jurisdictions to provide individuals in Mill Creek who are experiencing substance use disorders or mental health issues. We can work with partners to develop co-responder strategies on intervention and treatment operated by qualified professionals whose strategies are in line with the best practices dealing with SUD. Develop strategies similar to Naloxone Plus program, linking those who have received naloxone with treatment programs or other appropriate services. And then we'd be working with our law enforcement assisted diversion, I think that was called, right, Chief? Increasing availability, so directly to the users, distribution or training related to naloxone for first responders. Different ways that we can create public education as well to the community. And we could do that directly from City of Mill Creek. Or, of course, if we reallocate, those funds could be used otherwise as well. And then future expenditures related to naloxone. So I just want to give you an idea of kind of what we put together, Chief did, to on programs. Now, nothing has been developed yet, so it's something that these are the areas that we could look, we're thinking about using the funds for, should we keep them in-house. Now, the pros and cons on the Mill Creek abatement strategies. If we were to keep the funds, the advantage would be that it'd be a direct impact to Mill Creek residents. Of course, we're getting the funds directly to 443, or a portion of that, should we decide later on we wanted to reallocate. So there's different ways that maybe we could go the hybrid approach as well if we wanted to do that. There's minimal administration time in administering this type of funding and keeping this in-house. So there's not a lot of administration work, probably 5 hours per year, according to our finance director. So it's not a lot of time on the admin side. And then we also have the option to reallocate to Snow County if we wanted to as well. Or, like I said, you could do that hybrid approach and allocate a portion of it or keep it all in-house. So cons, I didn't think there's any negatives of keeping it in-house. If we reallocate to Snohomish County, the pros is, strengthen the partnership. We would potentially theoretically reap the benefits of larger program benefits. They have a mobile unit that they're thinking about putting together that would circle the county and probably provide the needs of cities when necessary, but we don't have enough information at this point to really assess whether how that program's going to work. So cons, There is more work with it. We have to develop an ILA, of course. There could be some sub-recipient monitoring to Mill Creek. Of course, if we are just reallocating funds to another agency, we probably have to hold them accountable for the use of those funds as well. And I believe that would, in my experience, that would probably take some time to do that as well. At this point, the programs are not confirmed, either are ours, but there's some parity there. And then we'd have to commit the budget for years. And once you commit those funds, I think it'd be a little difficult to kind of bring them back into the city. So city's recommendation is to maintain those settlement funds so we can use those for our own abatement strategies for the same reasons that I mentioned, is that we get that immediate direct benefit to Mill Creek. We have the ability to use those funds that would complement some of the other things that we're currently working on. Or it could possibly replace some of those funds as well, so we can use those for existing services or even products like purchase of a naloxone, or maybe supplementing some of the social services that we're currently using. And again, there's more flexibility with it. If we keep it in-house, we have more options moving forward. Nothing says you can't make a decision next year to change your minds if you decide that Snow County is moving forward with a program that you'd like to be a part of. So that's staff recommendation. And so you might have some questions on kind of maybe what we can do with it, with those funds. So I'll move it back to this slide and take any questions.
So is the direction you're looking for tonight, whether you wanted just to keep it in-house or?
That is correct. We'd like to at least get a motion to either go one way or another on by the using these funds, so we can make a decision on how we want to start either reallocating or developing programs in-house.
Okay, Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. Do you want me to speak on it first, or do you want?
Well, this is just a study session, so I think we can just have a discussion and let's see if anyone wants to make some comments before we give more formal direction.
Okay, thank you. Well, I oppose the reallocating the funds to the county, and I think I made that clear when the presenter was here. And no disrespect to him, I'm sure his heart was in the right place, but I thought it was all still on the dream stage of what the county idea would be to utilize these funds for. And we have currently a direct need, a direct impact to put Narcan on our officers' belts. So that would be one way directly to start defraying some of the costs for some of the taxpayers in Mill Creek. So, I mean, on that reason alone, I just think that the money is better spent, better used by us in-house, and gives us the opportunity to also give back what was intended as a settlement from these pharmacies or these pharmaceutical companies to the actual citizens of Mill Creek. Thanks.
In fairness to Mr. Bierman from the county, he was not here asking for our money. We asked him to come to just inform us of what the county is looking at, so we were informed of what our option was. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
And I thought I was pretty respectful. It was no disrespect to him. He was the guy having to carry the sword that nobody wanted.
I have no idea whose light came on first. Every light's lit up. So I'm just going to go down there. I'll start with Councilmember Duque.
I think I'm the favorite today. Wow. I will take it. Thank you very much for this, and I really appreciate the pros and cons. And if the question is, our opinion, and I think that's why we all raised up, I would like to keep it within Mill Creek. I wasn't here for that presentation, but I watched it, and I have many other feelings, maybe some similar to Councilmember Cavallari's, some different. But what I wanted to speak to at this moment is, I am completely shocked that you're saying administration for one of the pros is like potentially an additional 5 hours per year, and that's it. Because I anticipate I thought that would have been listed as one of the cons when I saw this presentation. Because for us to proactively manage this money, I would assume there'd be a position or a staff member, half-time, part-time, something, or someone who is actively going to make sure we are using the funds and we're not just holding on to them, that we are checking in about where it's needed. And so I just couldn't imagine the 5 hours. And then I thought, oh, maybe that's just the administration of the money coming in. So that was what Ermina was thinking, or financial director was thinking about. So in that case, that makes sense. But it's very clear to me, and that's what I wanted to share here, is I'm happy that I would support making sure that this stays in-house, but I don't want this to be another task on another staff member's plate that hasn't been, cleared out for other work. Like, this feels like this should be, I don't know if it's a full-time position. I'm not saying that, but it just feels like if we want this to be done well and make sure the money is going where it needs to be, that this should, there should be some type of either position, half a position, but this should be something that we prioritize in terms of workload.
And
That's it.
that was the initial concern that we had as well, and along with our city attorney, is that this would be similar to like a grant and the requirements of a grant, and that we would have to monitor this and then manage this more closely. But that was kind of the turning point when the finance director did advise us that it would not take much time to manage this per year.
Right. And I could see the management per year, but the actual looking at what is needed and following up with it, I disagree with that estimate of just 5 hours for the amount of work.
It's gonna depend on what we decide to do with it.
And that's what I'm saying. Exactly. It depends on what we're gonna do. And so that's why when I saw that, I went, it's more, for me, it was more of the unknown, that we don't know how this will impact staffing or what's needed. It was just more that it was a con, that it wasn't listed at all.
Yeah, that's more information to come if we give direction to staff tonight to go forward and keep the funds in-house, and they'll come back to us with plans and options so we can assess.
Yes,
what
and that's
the-
why I just wanted to confirm, mine with support would be that this is a dedicated thing that someone is proactively working on.
Okay, so the next steps would be that if this were approved to keep in-house, that we would come back with options on and the financial impact from a time standpoint and purchasing services or products or whatever that may be. So.
Councilmember Allison?
Yeah, so I'm in favor of keeping the resources here locally, always. Have we talked to South County Fire? So, we have the police department. We know what the statistics are, how many people they've had to save with naloxone, that kind of thing. But I'm interested to know, what does the fire service also need in that regard? And if we'd be able to, with our retaining the money, if there's things that we could do to augment maybe some of the expenses they have in this realm too, that are serving our citizens.
I have been in touch with South County Fire, and especially in touch with their community resource, their community paramedic program. And so that is one of the opportunities of building a stronger relationship there, and probably being more involved in their programs, and being able to help facilitate services to Mill Creek in some type of partnership there.
Perfect. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to keep the money here. I am highly in favor of letting our police chief and our staff decide what is needed in the city and how this needs to be incorporated, and what programs we need that are going to directly impact our residents, rather than handing it over to something that may or may not be helpful for the city, because it would be for the county at large. So I definitely want to keep the money here. I guess I do share Councilmember Duquesne's concern that it will take more than 5 hours to a year to go through this. I just want us to be realistic when we are having those discussions and understanding what we're doing and what the true impact staff wise is going to be. I don't want us to be blind on this. So, but regardless to keeping the money, absolutely. And the other things can be questions or discussions for when we decide specifically how to spend the money.
Councilmember Steckler?
Well, I'm like everybody else. My first reaction is to want to keep the money locally, but I have some questions. So I don't have a lot of information here. Whenever you don't have, we're talking about $17,000 a year grant, something like that.
Average of 25,000.
25 a year.
Just about,
Okay.
yeah.
25 a calendar year. That's not a lot of money. So I actually agree with it. Shouldn't take you a lot of hours to apply that, because we're not going to give you much to work with. So I don't see that taking a lot of hours. I kind of agree with that evaluation. Now, usually when somebody says that, well, we're getting this little tiny annual allocation, the question comes up, well, what if you put it together with other allocations in other cities? Could you, like Snohomish County, could you get more for it? You said program benefits, if we roll it up, but the only one I heard was this little, mobile rig that rolls around. And that did not strike me as a really great alternative for rolling up all the money and how it would benefit me. I think if that's, unless they have other benefits that you're not mentioning, I don't see a reason to roll it up. I see we could do better with just administering it ourselves.
The mobile unit is something that Snow County was looking into.
South County Fire? Snohomish County.
Snohomish County, sorry.
Snohomish County, yeah.
Looking
Yeah,
into.
yeah, the mobile rig.
In your packet, there's the presentation, then there kind of gives you phase 1 and phase 2 and kind of what they're looking at in terms of rolling out in 2025 or forward. They're actually going to use some of the funds that they're getting to support their existing programs. And there's a question of whether those programs will actually directly benefit us. I don't think we've had that communicated to us, but the mobile unit is just one of the phase 2 things that they haven't put together yet, the program. So,
Yeah, I remember the presentation that was here, and there are they talked about some wonderful things in mental health, individuals and that type of thing, but how that's really going to impact us, unless there's other information available here, my feeling, we're just looking for feelings today, is I'd want to keep the money locally. I think if we have a small amount, what's the best way to use that amount of money to benefit Mill Creek? I'm not expecting you to do a whole heck of a lot with that, because I'm not going to give you a whole heck of a lot. But if we could do something with that, a smart way to use that money locally, I think is a better allocation than, unless the Snohomish County can show me how if we rolled it up, we get more benefits to our local community than we would if we applied it ourselves. Right now, with what I've seen today, the information I've seen, it's better if we allocate the funds locally and keep it locally. That'd be my recommendation.
yeah,
Thanks.
we're purchasing naloxone now. How much is that about? Is it?
It's not cheap.
So our naloxone purchases are roughly between $3,000 to $6,000 per biennium.
Okay.
Councilmember Paddock?
Also very interested, thank you, Councilmember Allison, in what South County Fire has to say. I know you talked to them, and further information from them would be terrific in the next discussion. I love the point you made, City Manager, about it's easier for us to get in later than it is to get out later. And so if we kind of observe this for a couple of years and see what happens with what the county does, and then decide whether or not we want to jump in or not, it seems like a good call.
So I'm hearing a consensus to keep the money at home. Do you need a formal motion to that effect, or do you have enough direction?
Would that help? City Attorney, probably.
I think the city attorney is.
I do think a couple of us were asking about the South County Fire perspective, and I would like to hear
First,
for whatever reason, they come back with a.
Well,
hey,
but I think that's part of option A, because the discussion was, do we let the money go to Snohomish County or do we keep it home? And if we keep it home, we could choose to partner with Snohomish County, with South County Fire.
We don't need to, why not just ask them before we make a decision? It would just be interesting.
They're not part of the lawsuit settlement.
Yeah.
But they may have a perspective as the provider. They're the first responders.
No, I understand,
Narcan
but
goes on
it's-
their belts,
It-
not South County
It's a
Fire.
technical point. We can choose to work with them and use the funds we have to work with them, but they don't have funds themselves. They're not putting together their own plan to deal with this.
I got it, but they're dealing with other municipalities like ours in how to respond to this horrible epidemic. They may have some perspective that says, hey, if you all were to put this together with Snohomish County, here's the benefits based on the services that we provide. I just think it's worth hearing what they have to say.
No, I understand. I just am not sure from what we have heard from the county that there's anything in the works in that part of the county right now.
Fair enough.
Because they have, keep in mind, the county's got a number of fire districts and regional fire authorities within their jurisdiction.
I'd like to hear what the chief has to say on this one too. Thanks.
I did have some discussions last week with the captain in charge of their community paramedic program. And she did not relay a lot of encouraging comments. I don't know what they have planned. I don't want to say what they have planned one way or the other, but it didn't appear as though the county, they're somewhat separate entities. South County Fire and Snohomish County are somewhat Yeah, so I don't exactly know what they're getting out of the settlement. I don't know if they're getting a significant number from the county as far as fire districts are concerned, or if they're not receiving anything. I don't, that's an interesting question. I would say that they're probably not.
The, under the settlement agreement, the money goes to cities and counties. And then the city has the choice of either retaining it, or there's a Snohomish County is part of a group that can put together a coalition to provide, greater services. But I just, for clarity, if there was a program that the city wanted to develop with South County Fire, providing some services in there, and we wanted to use some of those monies, we could do that as part of the monies that we received and then are expending.
Very helpful. Thank you.
So that could be part of the motion, Councilmember Paddock, to keep the money at home, but ask staff to, in looking at options, explore options with South County Fire for use of some of the funds.
And Mayor, I think that was like the number one bullet point is the partnerships, to help find suitable resources for this funding.
So did you want a formal motion or do you have sufficient direction?
Well, I have sufficient direction, but is it fine? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Good. Okay, I believe that brings us to our consent agenda this evening. Item 11A is approval of checks number 67184 through 67247 and ACH wire transfers in the amount of $284,525.50. The audit committee was myself and Councilmember Allison. Were there any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions. Item B is payroll and benefit ACH payments in the amount of $256,137.50. Were any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions. And item C, city council meeting minutes of February 13th, 2024 and February 27th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is passed unanimously. Reports, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so now that time again, we'll give you a monthly report on updates on all the projects that we're working on and have our team pull up the PowerPoint is similar, is the same one that you've seen last month. It hasn't changed a whole lot. There's certain minor changes, but it's more or less a prop to kind of give an idea of what we're talking about. We'll speak to the high level items, both the city engineer and myself.
Martin, you may have to just share screen. I think we're having
Okay.
access issues.
Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, monthly update. Again, just an update on this first section is the strategic timeline, just give an idea of on those key projects that those high level projects that really council is going to be engaged in throughout the year. I think there's 5 or 6 are on there, and then city engineer will cover the CIP projects, and then we'll circle back with the ARPA funded projects and give you just kind of an update on the key things that have changed over the past month. So 1961, we're coming on the last month with Rob Fenty. Recently, he had a chance to work with him on editing that 20-year vision. I believe it's the week of April 8th, possibly we're going to be, that might be moved back because I know that we have that tour on the 11th as well. So we're trying to get a sense of when Rob's going to actually meet with us, but there will be some final discussion, and then he'll bring forward the draft to get it approved by council for that 20-year vision. By the 22nd, we will have completed our proposed 3 to 5 year strategic planning process. That will also be a process. I'm just giving you the endpoints here. Where council will also have a discussion on that and then approve that 3 to 5 years strategic plan. The clerk's office will be scheduling meetings for both of these items in the coming month. I just have to get an idea of when Rob's gonna be, I think he moved his timeline out a little bit. Given everything's happening, and we have that first week of April is spring break for the kids as well. So I know some of us have kids that will, and we will, some of us will be out of town. So 2024 comprehensive plan. Planning Commission is continuing to work on those elements of the plan. If you're not aware, there's, I think, about 14 different elements on that plan, of which Mill Creek, all those don't apply to Mill Creek. Most of those, some of those do, or at least probably about half of them. I can't remember which ones do or don't, but currently the Planning Commission is on the housing element, and that's currently under review by that team. The Department of Commerce has been consulted about the feasibility of the Mill Creek Boulevard sub-area study, master plan, and the approach to satisfy the comp plan requirements. So DRCC phase 1, the concept stage that we're in right now, the wetland delineation and investigation is happening tomorrow, correct? Starting tomorrow. So budget process, as we complete 1961, subsequent to that, we'll have an opportunity to start discussing our operating projections as well, revenue and expenditures. So we'll start talking about resource planning and capacity and things that we need moving forward into the next biennium. April, probably end of April, during May, we'll also have those similar CIP discussions of all those projects that are scheduled out through 2028. We'll start moving those forward a little bit. So, and then now I'll hand it over to our city engineer to talk about the CIP projects.
Okay. So first off, for NPDES yearly reporting, that will be submitted initially on Friday with follow-up coordination coming the week afterwards as well. Pavement preservation program, we are still in design for that, and it is progressing towards a bid. It may be towards the end of May that we actually get out to bid on that one. We are also going to put out, we also are working on a pavement assessment, and that contract is just about finalized and should be sent to the city manager for signature soon, since it is less than $50,000. Safe Streets and Roads for All, the grant is currently with the department or the Federal Highway Administration. So we're just waiting on their comments and approval before we can bring it back to you guys for final approval. As you know, the Silvercrest Park just got awarded today. And Grade C Stormwater is, we are finalizing that contract for circulation and signature. Library Park, we are getting a wetland delineation done on that. I actually just reviewed that, and it's the task order for that, and it's being sent out. And then Sweetwater Ranch, last week they were out doing investigations on site for survey and videoing of the existing utilities, and so we are progressing on schedule for that project as well.
Just to clarify, on Library Park, the design is not the design of the park. That's referring to the wetlands and the drainage study.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes.
Any other questions? We'll move on to the ARPA projects. And one small move is a citywide fee study has moved from pending to in progress. So we started research on that, and then you'll hear more about that in the coming months. We'll bring that forward with something. So yes, we are. Everything highlighted here is things I'm going to speak to. Everything else, if you have questions on anything, you can go ahead and bring those forward and we can try to answer anything. But website development, as you're aware, we nailed down our developer D2. We're in the process of establishing which web hosting that we're going to bring on, and then we'll start engaging our departments on website development and kind of the direction on that. So we don't have that planned yet, but that's coming really quick. Signs, entry and wayfinding, you'll get a more descriptive explanation in the coming week, I think next week. Marketing will bring forward kind of what they're doing exactly in terms of our entry and wayfinding signs, but I can just give you a kind of a little bit of kind of what we've been doing. If you haven't already noticed, some of the directional poles and wayfinding signs across the city, Mark has been changing a few of those just to kind of get an idea of how those look. We have a lot of freestanding poles that were out there that had old wayfinding. Some of those are not being used, and some of the locations that we previously had wayfinding in some cases may not be used depending on the effect it has on drivers, and it wasn't appropriate nowadays. So the old wayfinding signs were replaced with branding signs, Mill Creek branding signs. And the ones that we are using to actually provide direction are being wrapped with the new Mill Creek logos and colors and so forth. So, and you've probably seen some changes over the past probably 2 or 3 weeks. Springbrook upgrade. We've completed the fixed asset module that's implemented. The payroll system implementation is actually in progress now. Next up is employee self-service following that. So finance director is making good progress on that. And I mentioned the citywide fee study already, kind of where we're at with that. The city satellite location, the substation. So as of today, IT finally got connected to Comcast. The lines are dropped. So we got internet over there. So we're moving pretty quick on getting that substation open. Hopefully, once we get the furniture, I don't think we have the furniture in, do we, Chief? No, furniture's not in yet. So once we get that in, I don't know when the opening will be, grand opening, but we'll keep you posted on that. And then the citywide video security system, we have one location left, which is the Mill Creek Sports Park. And we're going to be putting video and wireless cameras in there, security cameras. So that should happen fairly soon as well. And I don't know if you've noticed, but at the Mill Creek Sports Park, we pressure washed it too after 7 years. So yeah, so it looks a lot different than it did in the past. And just to plant the seed, we're thinking about doing that self-performing. So you can guess what's coming up down the road. So, and with that, do you have any questions on the ARPA projects?
Mayor Pro Tem does.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a couple questions. One, can you refresh my memory? I know we were discussing the water fountains with the Parks Board as part of their ARPA funds, because I was out with the Girl Scouts at this past week or last week, times meshing together, over at Cougar Park. And that one is spraying water at the kids, which reminds me that pretty much every time I go use a water fountain in the parks, they're not working. So I really want us to start moving forward with looking at taking care of the water fountains with these ARPA projects that we discussed. Have we started anything with that?
We have not yet. I'll talk to staff about, I think we were gonna do a pilot water fountain somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
The idea was
At the sports park.
the pilot at the sports park to have a bottle filler.
Okay.
Other places, if we put in water fountains with bottle fillers, there'll still be a water fountain. Kids can still put bark chips in and still make them spray. But we're thinking right now, we're not eliminating water fountains because not everyone has a bottle. So we were looking at like what Heatherwood Middle School has is a combination bottle filler and water fountain.
Okay.
And it's non-trivial to put those in because they're each unique, not necessarily the plumbing in place. So we just done a little bit of looking at it, but it's not trivial.
Okay. Thank you. And then my second question is, if you can refresh my memory, I know when we were discussing the security cameras at parks, and I know we discussed putting one here, and I know we discussed can't remember before we discussed the library and then over at Sports Park. But we started to have a broader conversation, and in light of the gentleman who came in today, were we looking at putting one up around Heron Park at all?
No, there was not. Based on what we originally approved, we deliberately left off the parks until later on. So there are no cameras at the parks. Yeah, my guess would be based on the comment that we had, we would probably need to figure out more information on Heron and any other park that could experience similar activity, but so the answer is we don't have we weren't planning on putting them on Heron or any other parks.
Okay, I know, and maybe we need to come back and have another, obviously, we need to come back and have another conversation, because I know we had started to have some discussions, but we've been approving things in separate bundles, and I know we were interested in more cameras, and I do think that we probably should maybe have a conversation regarding a few park areas and whether or not to add cameras at them. So especially to eliminate any vandalism that may be going on.
And I had this discussion with the chief probably a week ago too about Heron Park as well. And the concerns out there. I did not receive all the information that is necessary to assess whether there's probably other mitigation that needs to be done prior to looking at cameras, but yeah, we'll look at that down the road. We want to kind of get an idea of how the existing system was working as well, and I haven't talked to the chief really about how the first implementation of those cameras is working now. We have them at City Hall North, South, library, the library, and the Mill Creek Sports Park.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And we also.
Oh, it's not done yet, but that's the intent there. Yeah, correct.
We would be looking at getting electric to some of these locations, so we'd be considering electric and Wi-Fi. So those were some of the challenges, but we will include that if we come back with additional locations.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Allison.
Yeah, and maybe this is just to refresh my memory, but the building security system replacement and the networking switch replacement, are those both pending because they have a little life left in them, or it's capacity with staff, or?
I believe on the network switch, we have really old network switches and they're not under warranty and they don't match, so they're different brands. And so we're looking at replacing all of those. So, and there is some kind of a capacity piece to that as well.
Okay, so they just, and maybe it's staff capacity
Yeah, so
until you
we
can
just haven't got that
get them
far
into
with
work.
IT.
Okay, they just seem like easy, low hanging fruit to pick off.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah, that's correct. It seems like just buy it and replace it, but we want to get a better assessment of kind of what that entails. All these switches that bring our data and information between the different types of hardware that we have. So, but that has to happen because a lot of these switches actually are past what IT professionals would consider useful life of IT stuff. So, and then the building security system. Staff still needs to assess the need to. The initial discussion was how the Mill Creek substation, because we're using the key now. That's our security system, and I'm going old school for now until we kind of decide how we want to implement across all of our facilities a possible change in how we access facilities using like key fobs, for example, because our IT manager did mention the potential risk of, I think the scanning or something to do with the key fobs could be scanned and you can capture those codes that are necessary to enter the building. So that's my lack of IT knowledge. But do we have a risk of that? Something we still need to assess if that's there. So so that's one that is to be discussed among leadership.
Councilmember Duque.
A couple questions for ARPA projects. I actually had listed water fountains as one of my questions, and it was more of a general, because it says parks and trails replace or repair tables and benches. So it was more if we could have more, if the other things that we have talked about could be included, that would be helpful, because that one just says tables and benches, and I think there were a couple things that we had talked about in terms of recommendations for that. So if that could just be added here. And then I had a question. It is not one of the highlighted items, so apologies for that. It was under, do you mind? Wait, where was I? Oh no, it's here. City personnel and police manuals update. You have it both pending and in progress.
I put one for pending because that's the
Personnel.
ma-
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I figured. Do you mind splitting it up then? So that we have it, for
Sure.
the next time, so that it's nice and clear. And I really appreciate your template. And this is getting not nitpicky, but each status update on each 3 slides, you're giving us status updates, but they all look different. And I really like the CIP one, because it gives us within the highlighted area, it says if it's gonna be bid, if it's design, like it provides that additional information. Here, I like that it says pending in progress, but I don't know how long we are in this in progress. And same thing then for that first section for strategy, you have it, for example, it says ARPA, and it's just a long green line for the whole year. So I don't know then what is happening in each of those kind of sections, or how the phases are. So I only bring this up because I want to see if anyone else, if everyone else seems like it's fine, then that's it. But for me, I feel like if we can I'm not saying they have to look exactly the same, but I like that level of information to be able to kind of get us where, what we're trying to do. Because I'm just looking at the ARPA, I don't know how long we're going to be in progress for that unless you tell us, versus seeing it here, or the longevity of kind of what you were thinking through. Thank you.
Yeah, the reason why I did it this way for the ARPA is because there's so many projects, and I wasn't sure if we starting to manage the timelines on these, because things are so dynamic and always changing, that there's some projects that I think it'd be maybe getting in the weeds a little bit too much on this, but I could think of some way to maybe better inform you on kind of where we are with it. Maybe a box, for example, that shows kind of what stage we're in or something. I don't know. Like, we could think of something.
Or even, Q1 versus Q2, or that,
Yeah.
like, even if it's just within quarters, because I just don't know how long the in progress or when pending will switch to in progress, and you might not know. It could be TBD. We still haven't determined, because we're waiting for these other things to move to complete, and then we can go to the ones that are still pending. But as we're just looking it over, it's, and since you mentioned that this is the template that you're gonna be following, I wanted to flag it earlier on, in this process, than, in September.
We'll look at it. Okay.
Councilmember Paddock.
First of all, thanks also for putting this together, all 3 of the slides. I would never bet against a project manager on how to put a slide together though, so I'll just ditto what Councilmember Duque said. 2 questions, and probably this is for another meeting, or if I'm the only one that's interested, maybe it's just a one-on-one. I'd be interested in seeing from the ARPA perspective, what's been earmarked or allocated of the original amount. What's unallocated, obviously the differential, and then are we on track with what's been allocated? So we kind of understand what's still left to be utilized, what's still at our disposal, because our time's going to run out pretty quickly on being able to use that. So I think that, to me, that would be an important component of this, and whatever color you want to use is fine. Yeah. I did hear you mention about the switches, and would like to really hear more about that. That's
That's another meeting.
Yeah, yeah, but not on this one, and not for Brian.
Councilmember Ellison.
Yeah, maybe just instead of X's in those boxes, if there was like an ECD, just to give us some kind of sense of, the duration. That might be just a simple way to update this and give us a little bit more information without changing the whole format.
Councilmember Paddock.
once again, thank you very much for putting this together.
But-
No, that was it. Thank you. And enduring an editing phase in front of 7 people.
Yeah, this was Martin's first pass at this, and so we will work with him on refining this. I mean, to me, what this tells me is our plate is a certain size and there's a whole lot of spaghetti on it. It might be flown over the sides, so we need to have a discussion in November when we talk about the budget, if we want to talk about accelerating some of these projects and wanting to make sure they go faster, so.
And just to point out, there may be a couple of the ARPA projects that do jump up to CIP as we start controlling them, and you'll get the more detailed schedules once we do that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not all the ARPA projects are on here. We're just bringing forward the ones that we're working on, and I could have done the same thing for these two, but I just wanted to transparency's sake, show you everything. To show you all the ARPA I guess we could have done that for CIP too, but we didn't do it. Thanks.
Don't put the question slide back up. Okay, and
That's it.
do you already cover, you covered your stuff too?
And we have,
Okay.
yep. And the next one, I think Jody's gonna be presenting on the extravaganza,
Is she online?
if she is.
Oh, there she is.
You're muted, Jody.
Yeah,
It's muted.
muted again.
Still muted.
There you go.
Good?
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about our extravaganza. We're excited to invite everybody out to our extravaganza this Saturday on March 30th from 10:30 a.m. to noon. And we're expecting nice weather, so that always gets everybody out. So we're expecting big crowds. And we're doing egg hunts same time this year, 11 a.m. and 11:30. Kiddos from from 1 to 4 go first at 11, and 11:30 from grades kindergarten through 5th grade. And we're going to have 18,000 eggs on the green this year. We have new eggs, and they'll be filled with prizes and candy, just as usual. We're super thankful for our sponsors this year, especially Town and Country, who provided most of the candy, and it takes a lot of candy to fill 18,000 eggs. And we had some incredible, our McYabs and the Kiwanis Key Club members who came in many nights over the past couple months to fill all those eggs. So we're so thankful for those volunteers and for our volunteer coordinator, Barb, who corralled them most of those evenings. We wanted to thank our sponsors. So we have jail, remodeling, community transit, Stellar Kids Dentistry, Nothing But Cakes, again, Town and Country Markets. Starbucks is going to be there with free coffee. Premier Martial Arts, Greet Magazine, Nancy's Noah's Ark, and our wonderful MC, Chris Jones from State Farm Insurance. We're excited to have Mad Science back, so we'll have our slime tent set up, and balloon twisters, tattoos. We'll be there. We'll have tattoos and photos with the Easter Bunny. So lots of really good stuff happening. We're also doing something this year. OTAC is coming out, and some of our staff and we're going to have, I think, 5 or 6 folks there actually walking around with iPads and doing our vision survey for the comp plan. So they're going to do a smaller size survey, and hopefully get out and really get all those parents who are in line and take this opportunity to get some feedback on how they feel about Mill Creek and the future of Mill Creek. So any questions?
Councilmember Paddock?
Just one. Sounds like a great event. Will there be any birthday celebrations for anyone leading this on Saturday?
No, celebrations are all over with.
Okay, happy birthday, Jody.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Jody.
Of course.
Laurel?
All right, so I will be covering for our finance director tonight. We are currently 14 months into our 24-month biennium budget, so that means our benchmark is going to be 58.3%. We currently, the nation CPI is at 3.2% for February. The Washington Seattle area is at 4.3%. Federal funds rate is still at 5.25 to 5.5. The unemployment rate did go up from 4.4 to 4.6%. And then city-specific, our general funds revenues are currently over expenses by $1 million. The revenues on par with our benchmark, right at 58.4%. All revenues are above or at 58.4%, except for property taxes, charges for goods and services, and fines and penalties. Property taxes come in April and October, so that is very much normal. For sales tax, we are at 63.84% or 5.54% over budget. Miscellaneous revenue is at 86% of budget, and that is related to investments in our tower lease revenue. For expenses, we are 4.2% under budget. And we have 4 areas where we are over. So in the legislative, we are slightly over, and that is related to the long-term strategic planning. In IT, we are over budget, and that's related to annual licensing. HR is over, and that is primarily related to the management training. So we were going to split that out among all the different departments, but we decided it would be easier and cleaner to see what training we were holding if we put that under HR. And then we have non-departmental that is over, but that is very much normal because we have the WCIA insurance that came out. It's an annual expense, and then we have our annual memberships. Right now, legal is estimated at 65% of our budget, but general fund is at 60.7%. We are still 2.3% over, so we'll be working on that. For City Hall North, the expenses are high because of the lease renewal, so that is that legal expense. And then we also had the WCIA insurance, that their portion for City Hall North. For paths and trails and opioid, the new opioid fund, the interest and the settlement amounts coming in are pushing us over the standard revenue budget. For opioids, we're looking at having 94,000 by the end of 2024, 25,000 annually, and we'll be just short of 500,000 in 17 years. The last things I have, I think the biggest one is just REIT. So we did have a large payment come in for 106,000. So that does put us at 69% of budget on REIT. And did anyone have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment on the REIT. I'll be interested to watch that in the coming months because for my day job, the builder members I'm talking to are seeing that even though interest rates are still higher than what they have been for the last few years, that sales activity and traffic is picking up significantly and that interest rates aren't holding back buyers, at least on new construction. So be interested to see if we start seeing an uptick of the REIT revenues. So. Okay, anything else from staff in the way of reports?
No other reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few things to cover. First, the SEC dinner, Snohomish County Cities, is April 18th at Terracotta Red again in Everett. The deadline to register is the 12th, so please let Adrian know if you plan to attend so he can get us registered. I will not be at Extravaganza because I'll be in Linwood at 11 o'clock in the morning for the grand opening of the Orange Line, the ribbon cutting, and then that's followed by an open house at the Edmonds Community College, I believe, from 12 to 3. Friendly reminder that on April 15th, not only are your taxes due, but your F1 is due to the PDC. Easy to do online. I did mine today. And then the final thing is the coffee chat on the 13th at MCCA was probably the most interactive one I'd say we have had since we've been doing these. It was well attended. I forget how many, probably 20 or so people. Very positive. I thought a lot of positive things to say about what's going on in the city. And I'm sure the Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Paddock will cover something if I missed it. The main things I wrote down were, of course, traffic that we already talked about and concern for traffic calming or potentially looking at cameras. Heard some more about revisiting bike lanes, not as much for bike safety as it is for on Village Green Drive, possibly as a way to slow down traffic. A lighting issue, Council or Director Todd will remember this a number of years ago, it might have been 9 years or so ago. We did a project where we put in lighting on the pathway down to the little dip by the golf course, which used to be by the tunnel that I think used to be the 8 to 9, and now it's the 18th to 19th or 17th to 18th holes. But we put in lighting in that, and Larry Saluski brought up before our former building inspector, the issue that we talked about at that time was just the segment of the pathway over by Red Cedar from 148th down to, I forget what the next development towards Heron Park is, but the path goes off the roadway and is not well lit. And that's something we talked about 8 or 9 years ago about whether we should look at lighting that. And he brought that up as another issue, potential concern. A lot of discussion about the library and desire for a bigger library facility, which, you know, we got into discussion of our role as the landlord and who determines where the library should be and what its size should be. And the last two items I had were some discussion, concerns about litter on the North Creek Trail, potential homeless, not necessarily encampments, but at least litter left behind from that. And then the general question of, is the Mill Creek Police Department appropriately staffed? Which raised the question, are we understaffed or are other cities overstaffed or vice versa? So, but overall, it was I thought a great evening and very productive and very positive. So that is what I had for my report, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll start with the chat since that's where you left off. And I really enjoyed this chat. And one of the things I find really interesting about these is that each chat is different. And I feel like even though there's some common themes, we end up with different topics of conversation. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is what we're going to talk about. And I'm kind of intrigued on how it changes. And this one, we really, as you noticed from the mayor's list, really had a broad range of topics that we discussed, but really the traffic, the speeding, great concern about the speeding, not just over around Heatherwood, because we had the people that came were actually people who live over by Heatherwood, but also on 527 and how loud that is for people who are living close to it and how they're feeling like it's really loud at night. And lots of great discussion about the library, which I always find fun. And just why don't we have a bigger library? What could we do? And it was really interesting too. The people started kind of brainstorming with us on what we could do to add a library, and also started brainstorming with us on how we could actually fill the university bookstore, which isn't actually something that we can actually do, but it was really fun to hear what they wanted to do there and what kind of ideas they were coming up with. So that was really good. And also I found interesting, because Cora had been mentioning it, was someone actually brought up people feeding animals. And that was a topic of discussion. And I won't go too much more into that because I think Cora is actually interested in that. So I'll let her maybe do a project and bring some discussion for us back about that. But just some concern regarding people feeding the wild animals. And I know I hear about it in my neighborhood as well. So, but no one's ever actually brought that conversation up to me before. And it was also interesting that Cora had been talking about it as well the week before. So I thought that was kind of fascinating, the topics of conversation that we had. Next, I'll just say the SCT meeting is tomorrow night. And I noticed one of the topics of conversation is a discussion about the Port of Everett boundary expansion. I know Mayor has mentioned that before when he was at a meeting. So I will bring back any information that I learn about that discussion tomorrow night and bring back that information for everybody, so that, because I have a feeling that's kind of really create some impacts that we might want to be aware of. So I'll be on top of that. And also I will not be here next week. I will be on spring break. So I also sadly will miss extravaganza. But I will be gone and I will be back the following week. So I look forward to seeing everyone then. Thanks.
We will be bringing in the Port Executive Director. I believe the Snohomish County Council last week or the week before approved the boundary expansion going to the voters in November. So we had talked with the Executive Director about having her come in and give a presentation so we can ask some questions.
Awesome.
Councilmember Cavallari,
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Steckler,
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Allison.
Just another shout out. I'll be at the ribbon cutting ceremony too, and the block party will be at Edmonds Community College from 12 to 3, and there's all kinds of fun things going on there. So if your kids have aged out of the egg hunt, maybe you could take them over there for a block party with the community transit folks. Free Orca cards at their booth, some balloon art and tattooing and food. So look forward to seeing people over there.
Councilmember Duque.
My kids have not aged out of the extravaganza. And as anyone witnessed in the lobby, as they walked in, they saw the sign and got really excited. And I'm really excited too for the extravaganza. No, I do love it. It's just, there's a lot of people there. And all the volunteers, all the staff who work on this, I don't know how you put it together. And I'm sure we'll talk about it after, but I'm very excited for Saturday. And that's my report.
Councilmember Paddock.
I'm very excited for the Orange Swift line. Excited to go there. Just one thing on the city chat. It was just a terrific exchange of ideas and perspectives, and the mayor and the mayor pro tem just did a fantastic job of facilitating kind of a give and take, and it was really impressive to watch. And you guys really represent the city very well. I was really impressed. Planning Commission was last week. We'll get hopefully a more official write-up on how that went here in the next meeting or two. Two things that occurred just of highlights. One was the city manager gave a report similar to what he gave today. Also talked a little bit about the 24-25 budget being a pretty big lift, and shared that with the planning commissioners. OTAC and LGC, two of the consultants that have been hired to help manage this, walk through a roadmap of steps from April through October. In that report, they kind of walk through them by month, so we'll make sure that we get that out to you all before the next meeting. As was mentioned, housing goals was first, and then it goes to some other things that follow month by month. So they have a really good program project that they're going through. And they also talked about the community engagement plans that Jody touched on, getting out proactively into the community and making sure we have a broad, diverse source of input on what folks are looking for in the comprehensive plan. It was really another well-run meeting by the group. That's mine.
Planning Commission is earning their pay this year. Okay, audience communication. Anyone like to address the council? I'm seeing no one in chambers. Anyone online like to address the council? Okay, we're going to be recessing to executive session. Before I get into that, can I have a motion to extend the regular meeting to 9?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The meeting is so extended. Okay, so we'll be recessing here momentarily to executive session to discuss 3 items: the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, or to review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1G. To discuss potential litigation pursuant to subsection 110(1)(i), and discussion of the status of collective bargaining negotiations pursuant to section 140 subsection 4B. We will not be taking action, I believe, at the conclusion of the executive session. We're going to start with about 25 minutes, so we will recess the regular meeting at 8:20 and go into executive session until 8:45. Unless we extend.
At 8:44 without objection, council extended the executive session until 8:50. At 8:49 without objection, council extended the executive session until 9 p.m. At 8:59 without objection, council will extend the executive session until 9:05.
Adrian, are you there?
I am,
Are we being recorded still?
yes, we are.
Okay, it is 9:04 and the council has concluded its executive session. As I indicated at the beginning, the council is not taking action on anything that was discussed in the executive session. So with nothing left on the agenda and hearing no objections, we'll adjourn the regular meeting at 9:04. 9:05, my clock just turned, 9:05 on the dot.
Only one I